Have you ever tried to rest and just couldn't? Not because your body didn't want to, but because your mind wouldn't let you. You even sit down, turn everything off, breathe. But then comes that thought, disguised as a reminder. You should be doing something. You're wasting time. While you pause, the world moves on. It feels wrong to be still, as if time only has value when it's being used, as if your rest is a glitch in the system. And the system is you. It may sound dramatic, but that's how many people live, with their minds caught in an invisible stopwatch, counting tasks, measuring performance, and ignoring a simple truth, lost in the noise. You're a human being, not a production line, but no one taught us that. What we learned was something else. We learned that rest must be earned through struggle, that we only deserve a break once we've drained ourselves to the last drop, that if you're not constantly chasing something, you're lazy, unmotivated, weak. So you grow up thinking being tired is normal, that living exhausted is just part of the game. And when you finally try to care for yourself, you realize you don't even know how, because silence feels uncomfortable, stillness feels unsafe, lack of productivity feels like a character flaw, and then comes the worst part, guilt. Not the obvious kind you can name, but the quiet kind that slips in unnoticed. That voice that whispers when you try to switch off for just 10 minutes, you could be using this time better. But stopping isn't failure. Resting isn't giving up. Breathing isn't losing. You don't have to be constantly producing to be valid. You don't need to justify every second with results. The question no one asks, and maybe needs to be asked now, is, are you living or just performing? How many of your choices are based on what must be done? How often have you ignored your own body for a goal no one forced on you? But that somehow feels non-negotiable. This conflict is real. And if you feel it, it's not weakness. It's a symptom of a culture that confuses worth with utility. But there is another way to live, more human, more gentle, and, surprisingly, even more productive. Just not the way you were taught. Maybe what we really need isn't to produce more, but to relearn how to simply exist without pressure, without guilt. There's something no one sees, but it weighs like a ton. It's that guilt that shows up out of nowhere when you simply stop. Not loud, not dramatic. It's subtle, almost polite. It whispers, not shouts. But the effect is the same. It freezes you. You take 10 minutes to breathe and feel like you owe something, to work, to others, to yourself. It's as if every pause needs to be compensated, as if the simple act of resting puts you in debt to someone. This guilt runs deep. It was planted long ago when you heard, while you sleep, someone else is chasing your dream. You have to earn your rest. Time is money, and then the message becomes clear. Rest is only allowed after exhaustion, only after pain, only after you prove you've earned it. But the truth is, that's cruelty disguised as discipline, because it turns something essential, rest, into a reward that few ever reach. So, what do? We push ourselves. We wake up tired and go anyway. We fake energy when all we want is to lie down. We work late even though our bodies already asked us to stop, and when we finally stop, instead of relief, we feel shame, as if resting is a sign of failure. That's the danger. Because this quiet guilt starts eroding your relationship with your own body, with your own time, with your own existence. You start to believe you only deserve care, respect, a break, after proving you've been productive enough. But what is enough in this world? When does anyone finally say, okay, now you can rest in peace? Almost never, because the game is designed to never end, and that's why the guilt sticks, because it doesn't come from something you did wrong. It comes from a system that made you believe your only value is in doing, but you're not just what you produce. You are, above all, someone who feels, and feeling takes space, time, silence. If your body is asking for rest, listen. It's not laziness, it's survival. Have you ever noticed how your body sends signals before your mind is willing to accept them? You're sitting there trying to focus, but your brain feels foggy. Things that used to be simple now take immense effort. You snap easily, forget basic things. And even without doing too much, you're constantly tired. That's not weakness. It's not a lack of willpower. It has a name, and psychology has explained it. Psychologist Adam Grant, for example, talks about the concept of active rest. It's not just about sleep, not just lying down. It's allowing your brain to truly pause, with no demands, no goals, no guilt. And you know what happens during those pauses? Your brain reorganizes ideas, solves problems that were stuck, and more importantly, it recovers, because our minds are not linear. They don't perform better under constant pressure. And quite the opposite. Studies show that productivity drops drastically after a certain point. In other words, pushing past your limit doesn't improve performance. It worsens it. A Stanford University study looked at people working more than 50 hours a week. The result? Beyond a certain point, the more they worked, the less they produced. And worse, the risk of anxiety, depression, and burnout skyrocketed. So this always-on mindset isn't just cruel, it's inefficient. And here comes the paradox. We push to produce more, but end up producing worse. We rush to get ahead and trip because we're exhausted. Psychology has already shown the brain needs pause. The body needs pause. The soul, even more so. But when were you taught that? Whoever told you that rest is part of the process, not the opposite of it? Maybe no one. Because the culture we live in doesn't value pause. It values performance. Even if that performance is slowly destroying us from the inside, but now you know. And knowing is a huge step toward treating yourself with more respect. Not as a machine, but as a human being. Complex, tired, and fully entitled to rest. There's something important we need to understand. This idea that only those who suffer deserve to rest, that only the relentless have value, did not come from within you. It was taught, repeated, reinforced. At home, in school, at work, in the movies we watch, in self-help books, in leadership speeches. From an early age, many people learn that love comes with conditions. If you get good grades, Dad will be proud. If you behave, you get a reward. If you're productive, you're praised. The subtle message behind all of that, you must earn your worth. And if you stop, you lose it. Over time, this becomes an internal pattern. You don't rest because you're lazy. You can't rest because something inside you learned that it's wrong. that it's dangerous, that it's shameful, and that belief starts to grow. At work, you feel like you need to prove you're always busy. On social media, everyone seems to be in motion, traveling, creating, winning. Comparison becomes fuel for guilt, and silence becomes uncomfortable. The performance-driven culture feeds off this. It makes you believe that only those who are thriving have worth, that if you pause, you'll fall behind, that resting is something for those who gave up, but that's a dangerous illusion because it turns care into weakness and turns human beings into cogs in a machine. The truth is, you weren't born to be productive all the time. You were born to live, and living includes stopping, breathing, feeling, even if no one is clapping, even if no one sees. But breaking this belief isn't easy. It runs deep. It's not just a rational idea, it's an emotional pattern. So, if you feel guilty just for existing without delivering something, don't blame yourself for that. That feeling didn't come from nowhere. It was built. And what's been built can be undone too, with time, with awareness, and with kindness. If you've made it this far feeling like you're carrying more than you should, let me say this calmly. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not weak because you get tired. You're not less capable because you need to pause. You're not inferior because you can't always be on. What's wrong is the world that made us believe otherwise. A world that measures worth in productivity, that sees rest as a waste of time, and ignores the obvious. No one can live under pressure all the time. Maybe you're burned out not because you do too little, but because it feels like you're never doing enough. Maybe you're tired, not of what you do, but of the constant need to prove something, and I get it. Breaking away from that is hard. Saying, I need to rest, can feel like giving up. But it's not surrender. It's care. It's respect. It's survival. You don't have to wait until you break to start listening to yourself. You don't need to hit the limit to realize your body and your mind have limits. And respecting those limits doesn't make you less. It makes you more you. If something in this spoke to you, remember this. Rest isn't the end. It's part of the way forward. It doesn't have to be earned, justified, or explained. You don't need to perform to exist. You already have value, even while still, even while tired, even in silence. Take a breath. Allow yourself to exist without pressure. Even if the world doesn't get it yet, you do. And sometimes that's enough to begin. If this video resonated with you, hit subscribe. Here, we talk about real life without the pressure. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this conversation is reaching.